Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Tuesday morning trading room. I trust everyone had an enjoyable extra day off this week. I know I did. The weather up this part of the world has just been fantastic. We're getting an early spring. I know that's not true for a lot of you. A lot of you are dealing with some pretty nasty weather for the most part. All right, so just a quick reminder for those of you who are new to the room, what you're looking at here is the diversified trading system. And I have mine set up with the Hawk Scalper here in the top left, Falcon Swing Trader top right, Eagle Trend Trader bottom left, and the Raptor on the bottom right. This screen you're looking at the NASDAQ, and on my other monitor I have got the mini Dow and crude oil. But as always, I can take a look at any market which would be of interest to you. Okay, let's take a look at what's been going on in the overnight. I was checking out some writings on the market this morning, and looks like the whole situation in Greece is causing quite a bit of conflict in the marketplace. You can see the overnight pretty much non-existent here as far as the NASDAQ is concerned. We had the London Open down here. Market, a little bit of a rally, but not quite as aggressive a session as we have seen in some of the overnights. Yesterday, of course, for all intents and purposes, was a holiday, even though there was some trading going on. It looks like the only action came right here near the lunch hour. Other than that, it would have been a relatively boring day, which is why we took the day off. So right now it looks as though the market in a little bit of an uptrend, but that's the NQ. Let's bring the the Dow over here. Oh, actually a similar look, except the Dow is giving us a little bit of a trend change signal. I do expect things to be fairly choppy this morning. Here's crude oil also on the Falcon. And crude oil is about the only market making big moves today. This happened in the overnight, of course. A large sell-off. Crude did manage, was this the recent high, $54 or just under 54? It looks like it might have been. A little bit of sideways congestion and then a big sell-off in crude. So crude very much in a decline today. And we'll wait and see whether or not we can find a decent trading opportunity. Let's take a look at the Raptor. For those of you who are Raptor traders, it looks as though we're working into a double pullback situation. So once we enter this trading band, it's not unusual to see the market make two pullbacks to the hard edge and then have the Raptor emerge with a signal. All right. Ooh, there goes the NQ. A little bit of a sell-off. Oh, we did get a a trend change signal and a late filter entry here on the NQ. Notice this, the late filter entry signal is when your filter goes out of sync, but the trend line does not. Very strong signal. Now we're working on a first micro-macro cross. All right, let's see, what will this cost me if I risk it up there. Trying to get away with a lesser risk amount just because the way the market is this morning, it seems a little less cooperative than it has been. Okay, we'll see if that works itself into a macro pullback. And notice we're getting a buy signal or a potential buy signal on our eagle, which is our hard edge bounce, a red bar buy off of a hard edge bounce. Let's see if that coincides with a trend line bounce also. Oh, very close. You could make a case that we have had a test of the extreme, being right here, and we'll see whether or not that fails. Okay, we don't quite have our macro pullback signal just yet. But let's see if we can take advantage of this. It is almost a second push on the entry. Still stuck with the one. All right, let's try to do this as a runner. Okay, now we're working on a macro pullback. The NQ waffling ever so slightly. Thanks, Jim. James says the advanced decline is about a negative 500, which means we're having a few more sellers than buyers. Okay, I'm going to try to add to this position now. We looked at this the other day. People were asking, how do I add to trades? Well, usually I do it just like this. I'll pick a swing point, and when the market breaks here, I'll probably bring my entire position to break even. The idea is that you never want to have too much risk in play. So if I risk 2 contracts up all the way up here, I know that Trade Manager doesn't like that. It wouldn't allow me to take 2 contracts. So now I am short 2. So at the very least, I need to bring my stops to here. And ideally, I'll even bring them to here. But maybe what I'll do is I'll do a little bit of a compromise. We'll do the bar high-low strategy. Give the sellers a chance to do something with this. No, come on, get down there now. The NQ being the stubborn market again, I'm going to start taking a closer look at the Dow, I think, or maybe even the E-mini. Oh, they're trying. Okay, well that's all right. It was worth the effort. Just looking for a little bit more follow through on that break, but that's showing that there's some very active buying going on down here. Which, makes sense because it's the hard edge of our Eagle band. We know to expect some sort of reaction there. And you can also see from the trend line we drew in there that we might expect some buyers to step up, which of course they did. All right, here in the Falcon now we have a trend line touch signal. And we're getting, it looks like, an opportunity at maybe a second push on this entry. And what's going on here is we're dealing with all these buyers again. So I really want to see the buyers put in a good effort, and then I want to see the sellers take them out. Oh, took a little bit of a slip there, but hopefully it won't be enough to mess up the trade. And I'm going to try to give them a little bit of wiggle room here because, of course, as I said, we know there's some active buying going on here. There is a chance the buyers are going to try to force the market a little bit to the upside, which is the other reason I dialed down my risk amount. Okay, a macro pullback signal here in the NQ on our hawk. I would definitely cover it above those highs. I don't think I would want to play that too tight. Now, this isn't a four-arrow consolidation as we normally like to see it. Remember, a lot of times we like to see those four-arrow consolidations give us something that resembles, in this case, a bear flag, because we're expecting prices to head lower. It's not to say a four-arrow consolidation cannot be sideways, which this one is. But the stronger ones do tend to, resemble a bear flag in a downtrend or a bull flag in an uptrend. For those of you unfamiliar with the terminology, this is what would be considered a bull flag, where the market goes up, we have this little bit of a pullback, it makes this little bit of a sideways channel or descending sideways channel, and then the market comes out. To the downside, it's just the opposite. The market makes this little upways channel, comes out of that, and then hopefully continues lower. Oops. But you'll notice, if anything, this is sort of sideways, maybe even slightly declining, which is not as favorable a signal. But we are still pounding away at these lows, so I'm hopeful. And once again, I'm only risking 1% of my account just because the market is a little bit extra quirky this morning. If we see the market take out those lows, I think we'll be in good shape, but at the moment, the NQ very undecided. All right, now here on the Raptor is giving us a similar thing. This is a sell signal on the Raptor. It's our trend change signal. Our trend line or our trading band has since turned over. And this is our signal where everything is in sync. I'm going to risk it or trade it below the low here. For the same reason, I'm looking to trade below the lows on the other tools. We know there's active buying here, right? So we need to see the market overcome these buyers if prices are going to head lower. We actually had a sell signal here on the Eagle as well. It's obscured by the trend line, but if I move it out of the way, you can see we had a sell signal occur right here on the trend line, which would confirm what we're looking at with the other markets. This is a tradable signal. And let's see, can I risk it all the way up there? No, I can't. What if I go back to 2%? The most fundamentally sound place to place your stop on this particular trade is above this swing high. Okay, so we can scrub our Raptor trade because the market is now moving higher. So the Raptor, the band is once again flipped over. So we're no longer looking to sell on the Raptor. We can scrub this trade also. And it looks like the Falcon, we're about to have our stops tagged. Unless the sellers step up here in a hurry. So this is what we have going on here. We have a little bit of extra selling going on. No doubt off of this trend line. Some traders have shot a trend line from here and thought this would be a good place to sell. Well, I almost thought we would be able to ride that one out. You know, it really messes things up when you have a NASDAQ which is strong and you have a Dow which is weak. Normally they tend to move hand in hand, not necessarily in a lockstep fashion, but they do tend to confirm each other. When they start moving opposite, it becomes very annoying. And here's what I mean. We're looking at a first micro-macro cross, perhaps building on the NQ. Here's the YM, and we're actually working on a 4-arrow consolidation / green bar sell. Oh, okay, well, still working on the green bar sell or a possible green bar sell. Ah, thanks, Ken. Ken says there's news out at the top of the hour, so no doubt that's causing some of the choppiness. right, the NQ slowing somewhat. Let's take a look at crude oil for a change. Okay, massive move lower in crude oil. And now all of a sudden we're starting to see larger pullbacks. So much so that we actually had a green bar sell and a red bar buy signal here. The red bar buy signal just disappeared, but it's almost looking like crude oil might be ready to turn over for the day. Now I'm always hesitant buying into such a strong downtrend, but maybe for a scalp, if the opportunity presents itself, it might be worth considering. Okay, now the NQ working on a possible trend change signal. We've had the move higher, here's the move lower. We'll see if they come back with a buy signal. Wow, and they are too. Okay, right into our primary resistance. All right, they've been reluctant to head lower. Let's see whether or not they can move higher. My stop was initially down there. We did have a first micro-macro cross signal here also, developed right here. Unfortunately, it tripped the same time as I was setting up the Falcon signal, but it looks like that would have worked out. Oh, darn it. I missed the Raptor signal here. What was I looking at that I didn't see this Raptor signal? Thanks, Jim. Jim says we're into our 10 a.m. high here at 43.83. It could be causing a little bit of a holdup. Just doing a little housekeeping. Okay, so what I'm looking for now is I'm looking for some buyers here in our trade. And once I see where the buyers are, then I can, again, in turn, get more aggressive with my stop. Come on. Come on. Get up there. Got to give me a little bit of room to work. All right, well, they're starting to take their sweet time, so I think I might once again get a little bit more aggressive with my stop. Call me a chicken. We'll go just below the lows. Actually, I'll give them just a little extra, just one tick below the low. Not quite to break even, but this is all I'm going to give them is this bar here. Yeah, even parabolics are getting a little bit tighter, not quite as tight as I have my stop currently. There you go. Don't look back. Keep going. Well, thanks, Jim. James is saying the advanced decline is starting to narrow a little bit. Looks like we're about negative 350 at the moment. So that's up from where we started. I think it was a negative 500. So that's actually a little bit bullish, even though the numbers overall are bearish. Once you make them relative to each other, they're actually a little bit more bullish. And that would no doubt explain for the recent rally that we have seen. Come on, don't give up now. Let's go. Okay, crude oil. Once again, looking a little bit more bullish. Let me bring over crude oil here for a moment. Notice how the market has moved from a decline to a little bit more sideways action. Our filter is starting to break up. Our trend line is breaking up a little bit. Possibly working on a late filter entry signal here, which we know tends to be a pretty reliable signal. But if this fails, we should get a trend change signal to the upside. So there might be an opportunity to buy into crude oil as the morning progresses. Yeah, well, there go the sellers again. Oh well. So a couple of pokes at the market and nothing too terribly successful just yet. Just itty-bitty follow-throughs, and that would seem to make sense, given here our trade forecaster says we're currently in swing mode, and in about 20 minutes' time we're going to be in scalp mode. Oh, goody. Well, they're just waffling. I'm surprised we haven't seen more yellow bars print on our hawk yet. Okay, the YM turning over a little bit already. All right, well, I've been watching this first micro-macro cross here for a while now on the NQ, and I think I might actually take a poke at it. I'm going to run my stops deep, just because it seems follow-through is a little bit of a problem for the market today, and I'm going to go in light. I'm still only risking 1%. We did have a successful first micro-macro cross higher, and it seems like at the moment anyways, there doesn't seem to be much follow-through to the downside. Once again, the YM and the NQ giving us two totally different looks. The YM looking weaker, and it may even be that the YM is moving early. Here is the hawk on the mini Dow. And you can see we're generating a few more yellow bars here. The frequency is increasing also. We are getting a red bar buy signal, or the warning dot for a red bar buy signal, which would be a signal we could sell the failure of Our falcon is also turned over, and here's our eagle generating a green bar sell, but the band is still bullish, so it's not something I want to get too excited about at the moment, even though our ATR is in sync. So a lot of choppiness in the market this morning. Here's our macro pullback signal. Oopsie. And now that the market is traded a little deeper, I can actually adjust my macro pullback like so. Try to get a slightly better entry should the market continue to rally. Okay, here's our red bar buy opportunity on the YM, and it's very similar look to what we're looking at with the NQ. Can I risk it all the way down there? Oh, I can too. Except in the NQ, this is still a macro pullback here on the YM. It has turned into a red bar buy. I am looking for a test of the extreme. I'm looking for the buyers to step up and support their buying. There was buying activity going on here. Again, some activity, in this neighborhood here, perhaps to a lesser extent, some of that there. So now I need to see them support all this other buying that's been going on. And we are working on a late filter entry with our Falcon also. So it looks like the buyers might attempt a push here. Hey, speaking of late filter entry signals, our late filter entry signal here in crude oil worked out quite nicely. That was this signal back here we were watching, where the filter went out of sync, came back into sync, gave us our selling opportunity, and market wasted very little time hitting our first profit target. And now we have a late filter entry signal here on the NQ. And let's see, can I risk it down there? I can. Oh, and now here on the Raptor's joining the mix also. We are getting our first trend change signal here with the Raptor. So this is our with trend signal. So our band tried to flip over. It's come back. Actually, the first signal was right here. This would be our second signal. Oh, and it looks like they slipped me a tick here on the Falcon entry. Stinkers. Come on. Not a lot of market participation, I have to say. My goodness, what happened to the buyers? They started buying. Where'd they all go? Come back. very, very neutral right now. The Dow too holding very steady. All right, it's probably prudent to roll these stops in at least a little. So we're dealing now with the buyers at this level right here. Or sorry, pardon me, the sellers. We poked through ever so slightly, and now they're beating up on us again. So we know there's some very active selling going on right here. We know there's some active buying right here. So now we pretty much have the market cornered. These are two very important prices here for the NQ. This 43, 83, 84 region, and down here 43, 77. That pretty much has prices contained right now. Maybe everybody's still on holidays. The buyers showed up for a moment, then they walked away. Now look at this bar. The market is dead neutral. Okay, let's put that away. Let's take a look here now at the crude oil market, which once again has gone a little bit flatter. This is on our hawk, where all of a sudden, after this huge decline, we're starting to see a bunch of yellow bars printing. This was a green bar sell, which we could have opted to buy. However, you can always use these just as an early warning that perhaps the market might be turning over. And here is the Falcon confirming that. We're starting to see a push higher. We should see the buyers, or pardon me, the sellers, try to knock this market back down, and then, providing the trend line doesn't change, we get a buy signal. That could be an opportunity. Notice how the market has gone from this steep move lower to all of a sudden things are getting a little bit more shallow. I've mentioned to you before that you can connect the underside of your trend, and that will give you a pretty good indication sometimes when things are starting to shallow out. We don't have this part here yet, but you know the traditional way of drawing the trend line is only across the tops in the market that is declining. And that works too. And you can see we've fudged it ever so slightly here, which is what we would expect. Wouldn't necessarily be enough to start buying the market based on that solely. But when you start taking all these things into consideration, it almost looks like crude oil might try to make a move to the upside. So I'll try to keep an eye on that. Oh, here we go. All right, here come the sellers, and let's see now if the buyers come back. See if the buyers come back with a buy signal. That could be a pretty good buying opportunity. In fact, that might be one that I even want to try to put a runner on. If I can get in there with more than one contract. All right, so here's crude now off of this green bar sell. You can see it's trying to head lower. Let's see, would we have hit our profit objective yet? Very close to our profit target. And after we encounter that profit target, we might see this market turn. Our bands, our trend lines have already turned green. Our bars, of course, are still yellow, and our filter is red. So we do not have a buying opportunity here yet, but some of the pieces of the puzzle are starting to get in place. All right, I don't think I'm going to torture myself any longer here on this NQ trade. I'm going to roll the hawk trade to break even, and I'll continue to hold the Raptor trade as is, and the Falcon trade, I'll let the stop strategy do its thing. And in fact, you know what? I'm going to go with parabolics on my hawk. It's a little bit more aggressive. James says the advanced decline is still negative, about negative 400, but that doesn't seem to be affecting the NQ very much right now, as it keeps trying to head higher. Seems like the NQ has got a mind of its own lately. And now that we're through this level here, you can see the next level of contention is right there from the overnight highs, where once again, we're getting some active selling. So once more, we would anticipate that the buyers, if they're serious, are going to recover this market sooner rather than later. All right, here comes crude oil on the Falcon, working on a possible late filter entry signal and a trend change signal, all smushed together into one. Now, I don't think it's going to print right there. It will probably build another bar, providing this current bar finishes green. You can see we're getting our warning dot. Now, I'm not placing this order just yet, but I would probably set it up something like that. I would take advantage of the swing low to cover the trade, I think. Because even though this intermediate swing low is in line with our stop strategy, the problem, of course, is that the market may flounder a little bit more before actually picking up the uptrend. Whereas if the market brings us in and then reverses below this low here, well, then I definitely know I'm on the wrong side of this trade. All right, so there's our hash mark should print right here now. Now I'm taking a little bit of a chance here because sometimes you will see two warning dots print and then the hash mark will come. So I'm anticipating that the hash mark is going to print here. I might end up fooling myself. You see, same thing happened back here where we had a warning dot, and then the next bar also was still just a warning dot, and it wasn't until the third bar that we actually got the hash mark. Now in this case it would have worked out all right. I would have been okay had I sold that. But now that we're doing it to the upside, let's see, did I get my hash mark? I did. So all the parameters for the trade are in place. First obstacle right here. I wouldn't be surprised, however, to see a run back here to our support line around 5160, which should now be resistance. That would be a nice little move. And a little bit more interesting to watch than what we've been looking at the NQ this morning. Oh my goodness, it was borderline painful. I think things are going to shake up in the NQ in the afternoon. But the morning session, very quiet. All right, I think I'm going to go with the parabolics. Not surprising to see a little bit of a hesitation here. After all, we did just break this line right here, right? And now we're fighting this line right here, so we know there's some selling going on here. Trying not to get too excited because the sellers are making an effort to reclaim the market. In fact, if they do try to press lower, I'll probably roll my stop back below here. All right, Suncom is asking about the late filter entry signal, if I could go over that again. Absolutely. Let me move this out of the way. Oops. The late filter entry signal on your Falcon, it's pretty easy to identify, and it tends to be a very reliable signal. It occurs when your filter goes out of sync, but your trend line does not. When your filter comes back into sync, so in this case, everything becomes green again. We have green bars, green filter, green trend line. That is a very strong buy signal. Here was the late filter entry to the downside. Notice the trend line did not change color, but the filter did. When everything came back into sync and we generated a signal, nice little move lower. Here is still another one. And you're going to see a lot of times your trend line is going to go flat like this. That's very desirable. That's something you'd like to see. And your filter goes out of sync, everything comes back into sync, and you had a nice little move lower. This is not a late filter entry. Our trend line actually did go out of sync here. It's a shame, though, because it probably only went out of sync by a tick or two on this bar. Here's one to the upside. Looks like crude oil is producing quite a few of them. And you should try to go through your charts and spot these for yourself and see what the follow through is like. So what I do is I just take a look at the filter. The filter changed. Did the trend line change? No, it did not. Did I get a signal? Well, in this case, I didn't get a signal, but it was close. Here's one. Filter goes out of sync. Trend line does not. We generate a buy signal, and the market moves higher. Here's another, right? You get the idea. Like I said, you can go through your charts, and it's quite easy to spot these for yourselves. I would just like to see this bar finish green, the one that we're currently working on. Because this bar is a real tug-of-war bar, right? We've got sellers actively selling, we've got buyers defending. If this bar finishes green, then that tells me that the buyers have control of the market at the moment, and it's probably someplace I can roll my stop. Remember, markets don't change direction on a dime, right? They're like an oil tanker. They need a little bit of room to sort themselves out. So there could still be a very deep test of the extreme here. This is what I'm on the lookout for. This is why I'm trying to keep my stop back, because there's a very real possibility that the market will make a move like this before it actually gets serious about rallying to the upside. So I'm trying not to get myself stopped out prematurely. I don't think that this little segment here is our test of the extreme. Short term, yes. But I don't think that's enough to cause this market to change direction. Those of you more familiar with different chart patterns might start to see this as a head and shoulders type formation, right? So now we're on the lookout for this shoulder right here. And once we get that, then we can start to buy with more confidence. So I'm thinking 5160 would be a pretty good target. And I could even throw a profit-taking order in there. This is the problem, of course, when you're trying to manage a single, is you're not left with many options. Okay, come on, crude. Give me 2 green bars in a row here and we can be friends. No, I said green bars, not red bars. Good question here from Suncom. Suncom asks, Eric, when do you do your real trading? I mean the time window. When I'm day trading, I tend to trade from, okay, this is my time. This is Pacific time. So from 7 a.m. to about 8:30. So I trade about an hour, hour and a half when I'm day trading. But I do a lot of end of day trades. I do a lot of position trades. People are always asking me, Eric, how do you trade when you're hosting the room? Well, I do get compensated for hosting the room, but I also, like I say, do end of day trades. So I don't worry so much about the missing an intraday move. But I have to admit, folks, days like today can be extremely frustrating because the market just does not want to cooperate. We've had some open profit. You know, in almost all our trades, we've seen open profit of at least, $50 or more. Here, our crude oil trade, let's see, we got in at 51.20. We were up to 51.40 or almost 51.40. That's $200 in open profit. So it's not like there haven't been some opportunities, and I suppose the lesson is that when the market is very choppy like this, very uncooperative, maybe the thing to do is just scalp, just grab your $50 when you have it and say, see you later. Instead of trying to actually hold on for a trend of some sort. Suncom says, just my luck when I decided to jump in with real money, things are slow. It's temporary. Believe me, it's temporary. I think at least from what I'm reading around the internet, I think a lot of traders are watching what's going on in Europe with the whole thing with Greece, whether there's going to be another bailout. Um, there was supposed to be a deadline, I think, over the weekend or last week or something, and now they've extended the deadline again, it seems. So it's like they're scrambling for an excuse to float the Greece debt, and they can't come up with a good one because, of course, somebody's got to pay it. It's a very unfortunate situation, and I think that's what's causing a lot of choppiness. I think it's trickling over, but it is temporary. Believe me, it's temporary. We had a very good January, and the early part, first few days of February were very strong, and now we're kind of hit the skids this week. But yeah, I wouldn't get too heavily invested just yet. I think even though we were looking to buy the stock indices, I think I'm more bearish still on the stock market. But once again, there's been very little follow through. I heard my stops get triggered here, which wasn't a real big surprise because the market was struggling with these highs, failed to get above there, and then boom, we just got nailed. The market came down really quick, hit our stops, but hey, that's what stops are for, right? Yes, we incurred a little bit of a loss here, but I've been keeping my risk only to around 1%. So even though it's been an uncooperative day, or a less cooperative day, I should say, than usual, we haven't incurred any huge losses, certainly nothing that we can't recover from, certainly nothing that's going to wipe out our trading accounts, and that's very important. You know, when you get days like today, it's important not to damage yourself. It's one thing to say, honey, I lost $300 today, than to have to go and say, honey, I lost $30,000 today. And I've spoken to people who have blown through a $25,000 account in a single session. I have no idea how you can do that, but it has been done. Okay, crude oil waffling a little bit. The Dow falling flat. The NQ, not a whole lot going on either. Our Raptor, all over the map. Unfortunately, you see with the Raptor, and this is actually true for most of the DTS tools, I should point this out, your first signals tend to be the best signals. Unfortunately, I forget what I was doing, but I missed this first buy signal coming out of the band, and of course that was the one that actually went on to reach its profit objective. The second one, we're starting to get too close to these danger areas, and the market turned and knocked us down. Again, this is an exercise that you can do on your own for you Raptor owners, but find your first signal, right? Find your first signal in sync after the trend changes, and you're going to see that very often it's going to be a productive signal versus taking some of these later signals. Those second and third signals, they tend not to have the follow-through that the first signal has. Okay, so our Raptor band not turned over just yet. but things definitely looking a little bit on the bearish side again. Overall, it's been a fairly neutral day. Slight nod to the sellers, but only slight. We have seen some moves higher also. Well, we'll give them a few more minutes, and then I think we're going to call it a wrap on the day. We'll watch our crude oil trade for a few more moments here. So we've got a little bit of added buying going on here. I have a slightly higher swing low, so I could start to roll my stops up here. This still doesn't look like a real test of the extreme to me. And I realize some of these statements I'm making are a little on the subjective side, and I know how you guys love subjective comments. I know you're scratching your head saying, well, how does he know? How does he know if it's a test of the extreme or not? Well, it's one of these things that is going to be more obvious in hindsight, but generally speaking, if I see the market, the sellers we're talking about now, if I see the sellers make a really decent effort to push this market lower and then fail, if I see the sellers really try to drive prices down and then buyers come back and say, oh, no, you don't, well, then I have a pretty good idea that the buyers have control, and now I can start getting more aggressive, rolling my stops up. You know, perhaps go with parabolics or bar high low or something that will keep my stop very close. But if I just see the market dipping every once in a while, just, you know, a little dip here, another little dip here, it really makes me wonder whether or not I'm seeing the buyers taking control of the market or whether I'm just looking at like a bear flag, a consolidation phase. What will give me more confidence to roll my stop is if we can get above this high now. If we can see somebody tick, say, 5140, that would give me greater confidence that, yes, in fact, the buyers do have control of the market, at least short term, and that they might try to press the market to 5160, which would be fantastic. But this whole area right through here seems to fall at 5138, so 5140 essentially. That's where the sellers have dug in. So let's see if we can't get the sellers to leave. Now the reaction, how the market reacts to 5140 is equally as important. I want to see, once the market ticks 5140, I want to see some aggression to the upside. I want to see those stop orders getting hit and the buyers leaving. Okay, you see how it's starting to move more rapidly now? That's a pretty good sign. But I do need to see it continue higher because otherwise it tells me that the sellers are adding more orders instead of us hitting their stop loss orders. Okay, you see that move? That tells me that the sellers have left the building and that the buyers seem to have control at the moment. Oh, see, now here come the sellers again. Where was that follow-through, buyers? Come on. problem that we're having too is that there's a lot of areas that the sellers have stepped up at, right? They've stepped up here, they've stepped up here. These are all reactions to these same levels. So there was selling here. This is why I'm looking at 5160 as a probable target, or a possible target, I should say. How are we doing so far? 250, not bad. $51.50 will be an important psychological number for crude oil traders. Crude oil traders like halves, wholes and halves. That means 51 even is a big number, 51.50, 52 even, 52.50, and so on. And to a lesser extent, they like the tens, 51.10, 51.20, 51.30, 40, 50, and 60, so on. All right, you guys, I'm going to get ready to button up the room. I have an appointment I need to be at by 9 o'clock, so we're going to close things down just a few minutes early. If you are trading this afternoon, I wish I had better news for you, but I think you can expect more of the same, more of this forwards, backwards kind of nonsense. If you're trading crude oil, and if we do see 51.60, there's certainly room for this market to move to the upside, but I think crude oil has made its move today, and its move is lower. I think what we're looking at right now might be a little bit of profit taking, and that's been enough to help shoot the market higher. So if you're in this trade with me, certainly don't be shy about taking the open profit, or even being more aggressive with your stops. But yeah, I think we've pretty much seen the move in crude oil, and the stock market, if I had to say, I would say lower. But it has been waffling so much, it's really difficult to peg right now. Suncom's asking me about cheat sheets for the Falcon. I'm working on the cheat sheets for the remainder of the tools. I said you would have them the end of February. I'm still working on that timeline. But you know, folks, we go over the Falcon and the Hawk and the Raptor and everything every day in the room. If you're confused about the signals, please just ask. But just a real quick overview. The Falcon signals are quite simple. We've got the late filter entry signal. We have our trend change signal, and we have our trend line touch signal. So trend line touch is when the market comes back, touches the trend line, everything is in sync. The trend change signal occurs when the trend line changes color. It's the first signal where everything is in sync. We do have the counter trend signal, which I'll try to find a decent example to put on, which is our double dot signal. But the counter trend signal must always be tied in with a reactionary area. So, you know, if you had reactionary resistance up here and you have a double dot signal, then you could say, okay, well, I'll sell based on this reaction back here. But if you don't have that reactionary area, then we tend to ignore the double dot signals and use them rather as an early warning that the market might be moving in our favor or changing direction. Okay, you guys, on that note, we're going to close up the room, and it looks like we might hit our profit target here in crude oil. Woohoo! That would be a nice way